So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Alfredo Calderon, one of the founders of the Virtual School of Internet Governance. And I just want to give you some housekeeping and updates. So remember that the recordings are available. Here's the link. You can go either directly to YouTube channel or through this link and look for the recording, which will be available sometime this afternoon, Puerto Rico time. Remember to complete the short survey that we have in the module where we ask you to give us some input on the session. These are the sponsors that we want to acknowledge that have been participated with us making the Virtual School of Internet Governance free for all, and it will always be free as long as we keep getting support from different audiences and organizations. Next week, we have Dr. Muhammad Shabir. He's going to have a pre-recorded session, so you don't have to actually log in to the Zoom room to watch it. You can watch it actually. It's already available, so you can look into it. And if you have any questions, he has provided his email so that you can contact him, or through the discussion forum, you can share your questions with him and to us. The week after that, which is the final week of this Virtual School of Internet Governance, we have Tom Barrett on emerging technologies, and he has an interesting session prepared. He will be live with us. So look at the emerging technology module and bring your questions to the session. So today we have June Parris, which she was an alumni or is an alumni from this program. And she actually participated in, I think it was the first or the second cohort we had a couple of years ago. So welcome, June, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is June Parris. I have a Barbadian accent, and so if you have any problems, you can just interrupt and ask me to repeat. I'm living in Barbados. I'm an alumni of the IG School of Internet Governance. I also was a former MAG member at the UN, involved in several organizations, both home and away. And I'm actually one of the people, I have lots of interest in human rights. So I will start off. If you have anything to say, let me know, because I must apologize. I don't have a presentation because I lost it. I was jet lagged coming from Zanzibar, and I think I pressed the wrong button. So what I will do is to start with the definition of human rights, because we're always taught to use definitions so that we can understand what it's all about. And human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights. So I will go on to talk a bit about international human rights law that was laid down, the obligations of governments to act in certain ways or to refrain from certain acts in order to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals or groups. One of the great achievements of the United Nations is the creation of a comprehensive body of human rights law, a universal and internationally protected code to which all nations can subscribe and all people aspire. The UN has defined a broad range of internationally accepted rights, including civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights. It has also established mechanisms to promote and protect these rights and to assist states in carrying out their responsibilities. I will read a bit about the foundations of this law, this body of law, and the Charter of the UN and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the General Assembly in 1945 and 1948, respectively. Since then, the United Nations has gradually expanded human rights law to encompass specific standards for women, children, persons with disabilities, minorities, and other vulnerable groups who now possess rights that protect them from discrimination that had long been common in many societies. I want to say that it still exists. So we will discuss that later on. So, rights. These are the theoretical distinctions that I've put here in the document. And you would have heard, most of you would have known about these, so I wouldn't read all of them because you would have heard about them. The main one is human rights, rights of the beneficiary, rights by beneficiary, transgender, LGBT, other groups of rights, and assembly, association, asylum, civil liberties, digital. Digital is the one that we can focus on today because it's all about the Internet School of Governance, civil liberties, education, fair trial, food, free migration, health, housing, linguistics, movements, property, reproductive, rest and leisure, self-defense, self-determination of people, speech, sexuality, water and sanitation. Now, I put this bit in because it's interesting that I found out when I was doing this new document that the Magna Carta, our Great Charter, was one of the world's first documents containing commitments by a sovereign to his people to respect certain legal rights. So a bit more now about human rights. A moral principle of norms, certain standards of human behavior that are regularly protected. They're commonly understood as inalienable, sorry, so I can't pronounce that, fundamental rights which a person inherently is entitled to because they are human beings, and which are inherent to everyone, regardless of the age, ethnicity, or location, language, religion, ethnicity, or any other status. This is another way of talking about it, but basically it's the same as what I said earlier, but it's another way, it's something else to look at and expand. So they are regarded as requiring empathy and the rule of law, and imposing an obligation on persons to respect the rights of others. We have a saying here, you treat people the way you want to be treated. So that's what it's basically saying here. So they should not be taken away except as a result of due process. So like incarceration or some mental health, if you have to be put in an institution, if you have to go to prison. But even then you have human rights. You have to treat people as you would like to be treated. So we get now to internet governance. The Internet Governance Forum, IGF, serves to bring people together from various stakeholders, groups as equals. And this is something that I like very much about the UN and the Internet Governance Forum. In discussions on public policy issues relating to the internet, while there is no negotiated outcome, the IGF informs and inspires those with policy-making power in both the public and private sectors. And there is the annual general meeting, as you may have known, which takes place in different countries in the world every year. And this year's Internet Forum will be held in Ethiopia, which means we're going back to Africa. There were complaints that it's always in Europe, so it's going to be in Africa this year, and next year it's going to be held in Japan. The IGF facilitates a common understanding of how to maximize internet opportunities and address risks and challenges that may arise. There was a resolution adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015, and this says outcome documents of the high-level meeting of the General Assembly on the overhaul review of the implementation of the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society. The existing mandate of the IGF, as set out in paragraphs 72 to 78 of the Tunis Agenda, was literally extended for 10 years. I think we're coming to the end of that 10 years. The IGF mandate Paragraph 72 of the Tunis Agenda, we asked the UN Secretary General in an open and inclusive process to convene by the second quarter of 2006, a meeting of the new Forum for Multi-Stakeholder Policy Dialogue called the Internet Governance Forum. And the mandate is to discuss public policy. This is probably a bit of repetition because I think I mentioned that earlier. Related to key elements of internet governance in order to foster the sustainability, robustness, security, stability, and development of the internet. Facilitate discourse between bodies dealing with different cross-cutting international public policies regarding the internet and discuss issues that do not fall within the scope of any existing body, to interface with appropriate intergovernmental organizations and other institutions on matters under their purview, to facilitate the exchange of information and best practices, and in this regard, make full use of the expertise of the academic, scientific, and technical communities. I think we haven't got civil society in there, but civil society is also involved. Advise all stakeholders in proposing ways and means to accelerate the availability and affordability of the internet in the developing world. This doesn't always happen, and we can discuss that at a later date. Strengthen and enhance the engagement of stakeholders in existing and future internet governance mechanisms, particularly those from developing countries. Identify emerging issues, bring them to the attention of the relevant bodies and the general public, and where appropriate, make recommendations. Contribute to capacity building for internet governance in developing countries, drawing fully on local sources of knowledge and expertise. Promote and assess on an ongoing basis the embodiment of VSIG principles in internet governance processes. Discuss inter alia issues relating to critical internet resources. Help to find solutions to the issues arising from the use and misuse of the internet of particular concern to everyday users, and publish its proceedings. There was a survey, an East government survey in 2022, which it would have, I think we already had that. It was supposed to be launched the 28th of September, 2022. The theme of the 12th edition of the survey is the future of digital government. I will say here that the IGF has since last year, including governments and high-level panel discussions and parliamentarians into this discussion. So this is a part of what they agreed to do this, so that governments can sit at the table and can have a part, share a part, and provide information and do something about what is happening in their countries. And the UN is actually funding governments to attend the IGF. You must, if you log into the Internet Governance Forum, I've copied the webpage into this document. You will see who will be attending from governments and what the discussion is going to be all about. The survey looks at how digital government can facilitate integrated policies and services across 193 United Nations member states. It supports countries' efforts to provide effective, accountable, inclusive digital services to all and to bridge the digital divide and leave no one behind. The survey includes digital government ranking of the 193 UN member states. The 2022 survey also marks the first study to incorporate an assessment of e-government in the most populous cities in each of the UN member states. Following the global launch, webinars and regional information sessions will be held to share further insights and key findings at the global, regional, and local levels. In addition to the English edition, the survey will also be made available later in Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, and Spanish. These are the UN languages that are available to us. And they try and actually, I know I was on a language working group, and they're trying to include other languages that would make things more efficient for people who don't speak these languages, like Swahili and probably Urdu, or Arabic is already included. Okay, there will also be a UN Global Policy Dialogue on strengthening and scaling up inclusive digital services on the 29th of September, and this is already gone, to support this survey launch. UNDESA is a part of the UN and experts on digital governance for a discussion of areas of strength and challenges in e-government and how to shape policies and strategies to build a healthier or more resilient future in the post-COVID world. That will go on now to speak about some organizations that are related to internet governance that are actually spreading the word and including enabling people to be more inclusive and to be a part of it. So organizations related, apart from the United Nations, I put a link there to the United Nations, to the Internet Governance Forum. Many organizations focus on human rights. Civicus, I was actually at a meeting and just got back from Zanzibar, a Civicus meeting. And that's a human rights activist group, and they focus on human rights. Not necessarily on internet governance, but they are aware of it because there are members also included in the Internet Governance Forum process. And I'm one of those people, for example. Again, Amnesty, a human rights group, but not focused on internet governance. The United Nations, I've mentioned that before. And civil society, they're playing a really, really important part. I'm involved with civil society here in Barbados, the Barbados Civil Society. And there are also groups that focus too on civil society, such as the part, I'll go on to read those coming up. The part that they play is not always in tune with government mandates. Governments have agendas, and we need to go around those agendas to get to the people. And I've been trying to do that for the last few years. So the Internet Governance Forum, DIPLO, that's one of them. Internet School of Governance, the Youth Signa, which is reaching to the youth, the Women's Signa, which focuses on women. There's something called Dynamic Coalitions. These are affiliated with the UN and the IGF, and they're open to anyone. Anyone can join up these dynamic coalitions. I'm actually a member of two of them. One is the Small Island Development States, where we're focusing on problem solving. It's not only is it in the Caribbean, but we also affiliated with Asia and the Global South, which is they're all members of the Small Island Development States. And then there's the Internet Society. Many of you may know, maybe members of the Internet Society, which chapters, local chapters. Then there's also the best practice forums. That's at a little higher level, where they have experts that focus on digital rights. I'm also a member of another dynamic coalition, which is Internet Rights and Principles, and we focus on we have a charter, and we're trying to translate the charter into as many languages as possible. French, Italian, English, some African languages. We ask volunteers who can translate to do the translations for us, so that the charter is published in many languages. So this group focuses on internet rights and principles, and people who are not have access to internet. Our meetings are all about those sort of things. We're going to be at the UN, and we will have a town hall meeting and a discussion with the dynamic coalitions as well. So if you join the Internet Governance Forum, you will hear what we're talking about. Then there's, I think that's all I've mentioned. They have conversations and play a part in promoting policy. We can't leave the UN to do everything. We have to also be a part of it. And apart from that, we are on the ground. We're involved with people, and we're on the ground. Okay, what I want to mention here are the SDGs. The SDGs are all part of this human rights. From my perspective, it has a lot to do with human rights, so that, again, an inclusiveness and well-being of the people, the populations of the world. And the goals, I won't read all of them, but I will just go through, well, I'll go through quickly. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, education, gender equality, clean water, affordable energy, decent work, economics, industry, innovation, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities. That's where SIDS comes in. We focus on number 11, sustainable cities and communities, responsibility for consumption and production, climate action, life before water. Again, that's one of our focuses, life before water, because of all the sinking cities and the water levels are increasing, and also the problems with sinking cities, and life on land as well. Peace and justice and strong institutions and partnerships to achieve this goal. So this is where Diplo comes in, partnerships. Okay, I will move on. So the above mentioned Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are covering almost every aspect of human life. With internet governance, we focus mainly on the digital part of it, but they're all very important. The government of India, this is not really related, but it's something to mention, established something called NITI Aayog to attain the Sustainable Development Goals. And in March 2018, Haryana became the first state in India whose annual budget intended to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So these goals are supposed to be sustained by 2030. Right, I will give a case study in Barbados about internet rights and digital wealth, health and well-being and human rights, where we had, I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but there was a computer questionnaire that was given to children age 11 at schools in Barbados, something to do with computer literacy questionnaire. And it was given to the children by the Ministry of Education. I believe it was funded by the IDC. Interdevelopment Bank. Yeah, I probably wrote the wrong thing there. The questionnaire contained personal and sexual questions that some of the children could not answer, and parents made a complaint to the ministry, and this complaint is still ongoing. The problem with the questionnaire, there are two problems. One, it was supposed to be a computer questionnaire, and the parents did not give consent or even notified of the content in the questionnaire. Why talking about digital health, to me, that is out of order. And we want to see at the moment if anything will come out of this action taken by the parents, by the government of Barbados and the Ministry of Education, or if it will blow over like things normally do in developing countries. So did the questionnaire about computer literacy have the right to include questions of such a personal nature? I will end here and we can now have a discussion.
So does anyone have a question? I'll give you a couple of minutes so you can sort your thoughts and raise your hand or write the question in the question part. June, I do have a question for you regarding that case study that was done in Barbados. The audience was supposed to be youngsters, right?
Yeah, 11 years.
Okay, and what was the whole idea of researching or asking this group of students these questions?
We have no idea.
Oh.
We have no idea why those questions were included, like your sexual orientation. Do you feel sad? Do you like your parents? Really, I couldn't find it. I would have put it in here if I could find it, but I couldn't find it. If you Google it, you may be able to find it because the questions is supposed to be about computers and computer literacy. And I don't know why these questions were included, and it doesn't make sense. I believe in my mind, it's something to do with what the research that the bank is carrying out. They probably want the information, but they hid it in the context of a computer literacy test. But that is just my opinion. You would have to follow it up for yourself. Because the problem with human rights and the problem about speaking out is that you have to have your facts straight. And you can't really say things unless, even though I know what happened, I can't really give my opinion because it's not been researched. My opinion has not been researched. It's not fact, it's my opinion. And in several parents and people in Barbados, they have the opinion that this questionnaire was sneaked in so that somebody can carry out research on the children of Barbados.
Interesting. I do have another question for you. Regarding the charter under the Declaration of Human Rights and the remit of other groups outside of the human rights hemisphere, are there any other organizations that, although their main goal is not human rights, are looking into it as part of their mission?
Yeah, the best practice forums and the dynamic coalitions, and it's all on the internet site. If you go into the Internet Governance Forum website, the UN, you will see everything's published there. So it's open to everyone to have a look at the groups that are involved with these with digital problems. We're not out of it, you know, even though the charter says we should do these things, you know, that we're not really, it's not happening everywhere. Even in Zanzibar, we stayed at a very exclusive hotel in Zanzibar. We're supposed to be having a meeting and they cut the internet. They seem to turn the internet at certain times, turn it off at certain times of the day, which is not acceptable. And like I went into, where did I go? I went into Tanzania as well. And even though we had access to internet at the airport, we couldn't download. So when you travel around, you see these things happening. I mean, Ethiopia has a problem with the internet. They cut the internet to people who oppose the government. Again, that's my opinion, but if you read the information, you know that these are problems in Ethiopia at the moment. So with there's lots of groups that are speaking out and trying to make things speak. And another thing too that I find is happening is that the cost of internet has increased since COVID so much that it has now become out of reach to certain people. It was bad before and it's worse now. So our groups, we discuss these things. This is why it's so important to the Internet Governance Forum to have the parliamentarians on site in these discussions. But it's not only the parliamentarians, it's also the people who provide, the providers of internet, who just seem to want to make a profit. Has anyone noticed how internet costs have increased during COVID, when everyone was working from home and working online? The cost of internet in Barbados doubled during that time. So government may not have control over these providers. I'm not sure they do in the third world or in developing countries or small island development states. I'm not sure how much control the government has over these, because a lot of the local networks are not owned by Barbadians or people in the country. They're owned by overseas owners like Cable and Wireless and other entities, you know, other people that have control over the prices. So I'm not sure how much will come out of the parliamentarians' discussions, but they're trying. So there are lots of groups there, as I said, as you asked the question, I'm gone off a bit. Who will be who are trying their best, but some of them are companies like Cable and Wireless and Microsoft and YouTube. Well, YouTube, they're not too bad, I don't think. But if you join the Best Practice Forum, they discuss these things in better detail because they're usually like experts and consultants and IT and technocrats who can explain it better than I can. So it would be good to tune into some of the discussions and see what other groups are fighting. But the groups are fighting, but then as I was trying to explain, the other groups involved are the people who are pushing the prices up. So is there any way that we can win? Can we have to get cheaper internet, free and fair internet, not being cut off the internet. One problem I had in Barbados is when we got fiber optic. Fiber optic. They didn't tell you that with fiber optics, when it rains, that the internet is disturbed, and sometimes we lose the internet when it rains really heavy and everything goes off. And then this is probably why I lost my presentation, because I suspect while I was away, the electricity was off and the internet went off. And then, you know, the computer has to whatever it does, fix itself. So things tend to disappear sometimes. So yeah, we're trying to solve problems on the one hand, but on the other hand, we have to fight the people that have the say in prices. And so it's very difficult because, you know, there's so many people suffering, like women in some countries that can't use the internet. They're not allowed to use the internet. And I know of some, in my discussions, in my meetings, I meet people like that have that experience. I mean, in Barbados, we have the internet, but it's very expensive. So people, if they want to use the internet, they can pay for it, but then they will have to give up something else. Because if you have to pay for a plan, then you can't probably eat healthy, can you? So the children during COVID, the schools were closed for a year, and some parents didn't have access to internet. They didn't have the tools to do their online studies. They didn't have electricity, some homes, and it was not very nice for some people. Well, the Barbados Civil Society, a group that I'm a member of, we try to help as many people as we can. But how much really is government trying to help? How much are they willing to do? Because they need investors, they need people to work here, they need these people to come into the country and set up certain businesses and things like that. So how much are they really willing to fight for these rights, for people's rights? Are they willing to fight at all for people's rights? So yeah, I've seen quite a lot of it in my travels where people are cut off in my meetings. And so do you think we're ever going to get there where everybody has the right to the internet? Everybody has the right to the internet, but will everybody be able to access the internet? Do you think, is it going to happen by 2030? What do you think? I'm asking you a question.
Yes, thank you, June, for that. And the question is, it's an interesting one because we are aware that, for example, Internet Society is advocating for an internet for all, which is something that in some countries, it depends on the government itself. And in other countries, there's more an issue of the investors, the local investors, to diminish the cost of accessing the internet. I see Bill has his hand raised. Bill, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Pardon me. I have to say that I think the answer to the question basically is no. There are just too many parts of the world where the funds aren't going to be available to put in the infrastructure that's needed. You know, we might wish that it were different, but I think there are the economy just isn't big enough that even those who have money to invest don't have enough money to build the infrastructure needed. And the second part of the problem, of course, is there are governments in some places who simply do not want to let parts of their population have access to the internet. I'm thinking particularly of places like Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, where the governments have rules, laws, et cetera, which are extremely different depending on what gender you are. And I think between the two of them, much as we might wish it was otherwise, we're just not going to see universal access by 2030, and I'd be reluctant to bet the ranch on us having it by 2040. I wish with all my heart it were different, but I simply don't see that it is.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you, Bill. The economy, as we all know, isn't favorable at this point in time, to get more investors or investing in having a accessible internet for all. And the other thing is, and Bill, you said it well, some governments really don't want civil society to have access to an accessible and low-cost internet, because, as we know, information which is transferred through the web would open their eyes, and they could do some things that don't agree with the government that's in place. So yes, besides human rights, there's political issues that need to be addressed. Now, my question for you, June, is it possible to see in the near future that human rights through IGF could impact the parliamentarians, and there can be some kind of global agreement besides the Declaration of Human Rights and what the United Nations is doing?
Yeah, this is why in a way, yes, because this is why they are inviting the parliamentarians and funding the parliamentarians to attend the IGF and to have this high-level discussion and a parliamentarian track at the IGF. It's because the UN wants the parliamentarians to be aware, because most of them ignore you when you talk about Internet Governance Forum. Most of them, they don't have a clue what it's all about. So then the UN a few years ago decided to start inviting the governments to attend and putting them into a discussion and a conversation with the rest of us. So that just to make them aware, the awareness of it. But the problem is, when they get back home, are they going to put these things into effect? Because again, they want investors, they want jobs. You see, you got to think about that as well. So they bring people in. Cable and Wireless has been around here a long time. So they bring companies in that are profit orientated. Yeah, they only care about the profit. And because they're going to work here for a number of years and with tax-free incentives. And so these companies are coming in, but are they really caring about human rights? So we need to engage with them as well, because I've had discussions with my meetings that we should get the companies involved. Companies like Digicel and Vodafone Cable and Wireless is the mother company, isn't it? But I'm talking about the network, the people who provide networks like Vodacom and Vodafone and Digicel in the Caribbean. I'm sure you know about Digicel, Flow as well. But they're not owned by the company is not Barbados owned. It's owned by a foreign entity. And we're really trying to get them at the table as well in these discussions, to get them involved in the human rights part of it, to get them to understand what is happening. But we go back now to what was said earlier, that not all governments want the population to actually know what is going on. So when they get back home, they're probably not going to do anything about it, or they're going to do some of it, what the UN expects them to do, but they're not going to try to get cheaper internet or connect to rural areas, remote places, schools, women, gay people. They're probably not going to embrace it the way we want them to, but they will do a bit of it, but not all of it. So what else can we do? How can we solve these problems? The discussions are there. We do discuss them, but is anything going to happen out of it? Same as the computer case study in Barbados. It's going to go quiet. Nothing's going to happen. They apologize for what happened. But in future, they're just going to do another questionnaire and hope that nobody knows about it. But in this instance, there was whistleblowers. So the population found out about it. But so it's the same with internet rights, internet governance, with these parliamentarians being funded to attend the meetings. They will talk, they will discuss, but when they get home, how much are they going to do about it? Is anything else going to happen? I think we need more activist groups. We need people to just, the very flamboyant thing to do would be for people who have access, just not to use the access for a couple of months or something, but we can't do that, can we? We need the internet because some of us work online. We need the internet to contact family members. We need the internet to do online shopping. So how many of us are willing just to go on strike, internet strike? That's what I'm calling for. But because I'm going to Ethiopia soon, I really can't say that loudly, can I?
Yeah.
It's like, that would probably be the only thing that would work if those of us that have access to internet just don't use it and don't pay for it for a month or so and see what happens. Yeah. So
June, you raise an interesting point, and I was wondering, the parliamentarians that are going to go to Ethiopia for this IGF, what level of influence do they have in the government? Because and I mentioned this because you know that ICANN also has a governmental advisory committee that has representation from about 170 countries, and they only advise the ICANN board on policy development or implementation. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's probably a bit more than that at the Internet Governance Forum. Yeah, policy will come out of it. There's always policy. The Internet Governance is all about policy. But what they want them to do is to be there to see and attend and listen more than anything else, to see what is going on with people who have problems with internet access. They want them to be on site and they want to discuss, to have a dialogue with them to make things better in their own countries. Yeah, so it's a bit more than policy. It's a bit more about your ears. We want your ears. We want you to hear what we're saying, you know?
Yeah. Create a thunderstorm or some kind of getting more people involved in the decision-making process. I see that, Andre, you have your hand raised. Andre, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alfredo, very much for giving me the floor. I think there is a really important issue about the IGF in Addis Ababa. I'm going to go to attend there in person, to attend the meeting, and I encourage everyone not for doing it in person if they can, it's better. If they cannot, I think the meeting is fully interactive, and it is really important to attend for everyone. Of course, thank you very much. This discussion about the human rights. There's an interesting metaphor. So I have in mind. So we are not paying for the air we're breathing. Why should we pay for the internet? This dialogue is really important, and I think it's not for 1 hour, but for a bit more and more and more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. June, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I agree with what he said. He's going to be in Ethiopia, so he's probably feeling the same way I'm feeling. A little bit of, okay, what's going to happen there? But we got an email recently saying that the civil war has died down a bit. The UN was there. The people from the Secretariat, they visited a couple of times, and they were in discussions with the government of Ethiopia. And I believe that they're trying to keep peace for the duration of the Internet Governance Forum. But yeah, they tend to cut your internet, don't they? They tend to cut off people's internet in Ethiopia. So, but because this conference is it's a UN conference, you know that the UN usually has their own people on the ground, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Peacekeepers, they'll have peacekeepers there, and they'll have the interpreters, and they'll have the people around to more or less keep the peace. So a lot of us were thinking we weren't going to go, but then I got an email recently saying that there was peace at the moment. So yeah, we'll get a chance to listen to this human rights discussion, and we are planning to talk about human rights at the UN. My group's the Internet Rights and Principles. We're going to talk about these things in our discussion, but what we're saying is that we can talk about it, but not name any countries. You know, don't call any names, but talk about it, but without calling names. That's what we plan to do. And yeah, so hopefully it will all turn out okay.
Yeah. So are there any more questions from the students? If they're not, June, I want to thank you for spending some time with us and giving us your insights on human rights and the perspective of what we can expect in the IGF regarding human rights. And I want to invite everyone to respond to the short survey that you see the link in the chat. And once we have the recording available, we'll share it in the playlist of the YouTube channel that we have. So again, thank you, June, for your time. Hope to hear from you later on the results of the IGF, and Andre as well, since you're both going. I'll be accessing remotely. I'm going to participate in a couple of sessions of the Dynamic Coalition on Schools of Internet Governance as well. So I guess we'll see each other in the ether of the event.
We'll see you on. I think I've registered for your remind me of the date. I think I'm registered for that as well, of your meetings.
Yeah, I can't remember the dates. I think it's a couple on day 0 and then through the different tracks of the meeting.
Yeah, I've seen them, I think, and I'm just going to check my schedule and make sure that I'm in attendance on. I might be doing something else, but I can plug into you online as well.
Great. So thank you, June. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this session. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and bye.
Bye.